Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll be bringing you some B-24 gameplay. Now the B-24 is a US heavy bomber located at 5.7, folded with the B-17G. Nowadays, if you're unfortunate enough to play any US heavy bomber, this video will still apply because, as you know, most level bombers are at a unique disadvantage within War Thunder. This larger issue is why I described the B-24 as actually a good bomber, but it's completely ineffective. Bombers in game are dependent on three tangible performance traits to be effective. That's their speed, their bomb load, and their defensive capability. However, what limits them more so are elements of War Thunder that are separate from the flight model. And this continues with this. I'll explain that the B-24 has most of those tangible things in one way or the other compared to its real life peers. Its bomb load is slightly under average, but quantitatively it's efficient. 8,000 pounds is fine on paper. It has a very robust defensive armament, and I'll elaborate on this more. It's also fast enough to give it a chance of making it to one base at a minimum. It's not like the Sterling or some of the Soviet heavy bombers that are truly really slow. The greater issue, though, lies just within the reality of the state of War Thunder, that if you use a heavy bomber air spawn, you will get intercepted. Because your flight path is predictable, and once you get to battle rating 5.0, the fighter aircraft perform well enough to catch you. You will get intercepted. If you somehow don't, there's no way you're going to get to perform 2 sorties for a chance to do meaningful base damage in 25 minutes, starting from that air spawn. There just is no way, and this is made worse by a later fact of the maps that I'll touch on. While the B-24 can survive being intercepted and possibly shoot down a fighter, still that same issue is going to remain, and if you take damage, it gets worse because now you have to aim bombs with a damaged aircraft. You're slower. It just starts this kind of deprecating cycle that just doesn't get better. At low altitude, your chances are better. I find it easier to defend the aircraft because everyone's going to be coming from above you. Your flight path is no longer predictable. But even then it means that you need to take off, spend more time flying, and drop bombs later just for the chance to land sooner. That's if you do that. But none of this matters if the bombers with an air spawn or other aircraft get to the bases before you and they either don't respawn, or if they do, the damage you'll deliver will be meaningless to the game's outcome. And this phenomenon has spread since so few maps nowadays have the airfield bombing point anymore. You could attack ground targets too, but other than ships, which the B-24 does quite well against, it doesn't handle well enough to attack anything else. Unless you use the 2,000 pound bombs, but you only get 4 of them. So you're not going to do a whole lot with that. In one of my clips, I fly all the way around the Hokkaido map just to bomb one carrier, and it still only gives me about 300 mission score and a puny effect on the status bar. There just has to be a better reward for doing something like that. If you do go for ships, though, go after light cruisers and destroyers. But anyways, the reality of a plane like this is that it's got to start with adding 5 more minutes to the match timer. not every bomber is a Ju-288 that can, do 700 kilometers an hour in a dive and just get from point A to point B like, lickety split. Furthermore, they have to reintroduce the airfield bombing point to make any bomber more reasonable to play. You just don't see any games, probably above 2.0, even though that's still kind of rare, where bombers really have a chance to end the match. And I'll also touch on this, both kind of historically speaking, sort of, when you compare the B-24 to the B-17. Other than maybe if Gaijin's logic is that the fuselage of the B-24 is really tanky, because it's pretty big, I don't really see a reason for the B-24 to be 5.7 while the B-17G is 5.0. They should be the kind of aircraft that leave the same imprint on a match. And historically, the Air Force preferred the B-17. All of this just accumulates to result in the B-24D, it has a lot of potential. You'll see that I kill aircraft in it. None of the matches I showed depict me making it to a bombing point specifically, though I have experience doing so. When that does happen, it's just not rewarded for its purpose. And it's not a bad experience. It's just pointless in the current meta.